Dabi is arguably the most mysterious character in the world of My Hero Academia. Whilst the majority of the fandom, myself included, have accepted the headcanon that he is Toya Todoroki, there's still a lot we don't know about this character for sure. Like, for example, where was he for all those years before he met the League of Villains, and how did Toya supposedly die? Like, we don't actually know this stuff. However, in this video, for once, we're going to be ignoring all the mystery around this character, and instead we're going to focus on something that is very, very obvious, that being his scars and his body's lack of durability when it comes to using his own quirk. I have a pretty solid theory as to how Dabi will overcome these obstacles, and it came to me a couple of weeks ago when reading one of the latest chapters in the manga. For that reason, this video will have manga spoilers, but don't let that stop you from subscribing because we are still on the road to 100k. Okay, I'm just going to get straight into it. We all know that Shigaraki recently gained the power of All For One, which is the core of this theory. Because this quirk gives him the ability to both steal quirks and transfer quirks, I realized that this provides a perfect opportunity for the rest of the League of Villains to also be given abilities as well. On at least 2 separate occasions in the manga, we've seen that Dabi seriously struggles to control the side effects of his flames. The first time was during his battle against Getin in My Villain Academia, when the ice user said that he'd been smelling Dabi's burning flesh for a while. We then see the smoke coming from Dabi's scars, as Getin states that his skin looks like it could peel off at any second. It was during this battle that we got the concrete information that we'd long suspected, and that was that Dabi cannot fight for a long time without being consumed by his own fire. The second time in the manga was during the war arc, and this happened when Dabi faced off against Tokoyami and Hawks. Dabi actually had the upper hand in this battle because he was up against 2 people who have a weakness to either flames or light, but even then with the advantage he still wasn't able to secure the win because he kept stalling so that his body could recover between attacks. Then later on when he goes to attack Tokoyami, we can literally see his skin peeling off. Like, it's gross, and yeah, it's not great for Dabi. Therefore, out of all Shigaraki's close allies, Dabi is clearly the one member who desperately needs an additional ability. Well, actually maybe Spinner as well because, I mean, this guy just sucks. Over the years, we know that Dr. Garaki has made several copies of the Super Regeneration quirk. I'm pretty sure it would be safe to say that, I mean, if we're including the Black Nomus, the Super Regeneration quirk is by far the quirk that has had the most different users. A power like this would finally enable Dabi to use his cremation quirk without any restraints, as his body should immediately heal from the damage. As a result, he could begin to try out new techniques that would normally be too dangerous for him, such as the Prominence Burn or Hell's Curtain. I see no reason why Shigaraki wouldn't do this, as by powering up Dabi in this way, he could genuinely go toe-to-toe with Endeavor. And I think this has to happen because if these two, you know, Dabi and Endeavor, if they're ever gonna fight, without regeneration, Dabi's just gonna get flamed, not just by his own fire, but also by his dad's as well. Also, on a separate note, we know that when All For One found the regeneration quirk many years ago, it failed to heal his pre-existing injuries, which is why he looks like this. We've also seen in the recent chapters that Shigaraki's missing fingers have yet to grow back despite him acquiring Super Regeneration. So this shows us that the quirk only works for injuries going forward, but it doesn't heal the injuries you've already suffered. This would mean that the power would not be enough to heal Dabi's scars if he acquired it, but there's still another quirk out there that could do that, and I'll explain how. Shigaraki's fascination with the quirk-destroying bullets has been evident ever since he hijacked a police vehicle to steal some, and then subsequently asked twice to replicate them, and then asked Dr. Garaki to replicate them, and then had a bunch of them mass-produced, and pocketed about 5 more of them after some of them were destroyed. Furthermore, during the Overhaul arc, Toga found out that Eri was the source of the bullets, and told Shigaraki this over the phone. In fact, she even went as far to say that they didn't manage to kidnap her this time, which indicates this is something that Shigaraki would obviously be open to doing. Now listen, I don't want Eri to go through any more emotional trauma, I don't want it to be kidnapped or any of this stuff, but when the King of the Underworld wants more quirk replicating bullets, and he is very much aware of the girl whose blood is able to create them, let's just say there's a few different ways that could go. If at any point during this series Shigaraki encounters Eri, stealing her quirk or copying it, that would be quite a desirable outcome for him for a lot of reasons. Not just for the bullets, but obviously it could have a ton of other applications, including rewinding Dabi. I know what you're thinking though. If we rewind Dabi, then surely that will just turn him back into a 12-year-old child or something like that. And while that is a valid point to make, we saw during the Overhaul arc itself that with enough experimentation, he was able to turn a quirk that rewinds people's ages into a quirk that rewinds people's quirks out of existence. That's why when Mirio lost his quirk, instead of rewinding him to the age of 3 years old, which is probably the last time he didn't have a quirk, Instead, it just totally erased his quirk whilst keeping him the same age. That right there is the evidence that with enough experimentation, Rewind can be applied in ways that don't de-age people, but still significantly alter them in some way. If Dr. Graki or Shigaraki are given sufficient time, believe me, I'm pretty sure they could find a way to revert Dabi into his handsome Squidward form. Although saying that, I'm not sure how much of a priority it is to give Dabi a makeover, but yeah, I'm just throwing the idea out there. Now, going back to the Super Regeneration quirk for a second, an interesting question to ask is whether or not Shigaraki would be willing to give Dabi his own Super Regeneration quirk, and the answer is probably no, because it's a super useful quirk for anyone to have, so Shigaraki's likely going to keep on to his version of it. That said though, because Shigaraki has an army of Black Nomu at his beck and call, like they will literally only act on his command, and so it's clear that he could simply order one of them to his location and do a quick quirk transfer to Dabi. We saw AFO do something similar like this in the manga, only in that case it was a quirk swap, but you know, by passing the regeneration quirk immediately to Dabi from a Nomu, there's not really any downsides to doing that, because you still have a whole army with super regeneration, so at the end of the day all you would do is take the quirk from one Nomu and give it to one of your, leading commanders. And that, my friends, is the likely way that I think Dabi will gain super regeneration, and I think it might happen sooner than we think. As of the last chapter, Dabi was on his way to see Shigaraki with obviously the rest of the League of Villains, and once they arrive there, Shiggy will be very happy to see them and might do them a quick favor and give them a few quirks, who knows. Anyway people, those are my thoughts on how Dabi could gain a regeneration quirk and therefore defeat Endeavor when they eventually come face to face. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see him without the scars, or if you just prefer him, the way he is, the iconic design of him with the scars. Should it be taken away or should it be kept? Let me know down below. Also, remember to submit any questions for the Patreon Q&A, as I will be recording that later this week and putting it out on the weekend. So yeah, be sure to get your questions in if you have any. Peace out.